Hey, I'm Aaron, a 30-year-old guy, and I just need to vent a little. My whole life, I've had friends who seemed to stick around just because they thought I was the trust fund baby who'd bankroll wild parties and shower them with expensive gifts. They'd bail as soon as they realized that wasn't me at all. Sure, my parents have set up a big trust fund, and yeah, they worked their butts off for it, so I know how easily it could all crash if I'm not careful. Every day, I hustle to build on what my dad started. But recently, I nearly made a massive mistake. Enter Ashley, my wife and love of my life. She's 28. I didn't really date in college because I'm not into casual flings. I've always wanted something real, to date with the purpose of marriage. Unfortunately, when people heard about my family's wealth, it attracted some sketchy folks. They wanted to mooch off me, and while I did help a few friends out with money and sometimes paid for drinks, it was never over the top. I believe in enjoying life in moderation. It's important to me to stay grounded and be part of the community. But even while trying to stay friendly, I rarely trusted anyone. Then, at my graduation party, I met Ashley. She didn't seem to know who I was, so we started chatting casually and really vibed right away. We swapped numbers, and for our first date, I took her to McDonald's. We had the best time. She didn't care that it wasn't some fancy place, and I was smitten. Ashley was just being herself, smart, fun, and genuine. For the first time, I felt like I was more than just my bank account. After a month of dating, I introduced her to my parents. She didn't act all surprised or fazed by how rich I was, which I took as a good sign. Little did I know, that was all part of her plan. She knew exactly who I was from day one. She was just so poised and charming with my family, and I fell even harder. She was the first girl I ever brought home, and my parents were thrilled for me. We dated for a year, and during that time, she'd never accept expensive gifts, saying it wasn't right since we weren't married yet. I proposed after a year, and she was wonderful to my parents, even asking them not to ever force her to quit her job because she wanted to help grow our fortune. My mom loved her for that. Ashley worked at an IT company and was making decent money herself. At our second anniversary party, my parents announced they'd include her as a beneficiary in my trust fund. She hit it off with Rob, our trustee, and they seemed to get along great. Turns out, she was actually playing me all along. She was traveling for work, but was actually going on trips with her affair partner. I'd often see her at parties, laughing and chatting it up with Rob, our accountant. But I was too blind with love to suspect anything. I never thought she'd cheat. For nearly 7 years, she played the perfect wife. Then my parents passed away 6 months apart, which was devastating. I threw myself into work, trying to keep everything together. That's when Ashley's true colors began to show. She was distant after the funeral, and I assumed she was grieving her own way, giving her space. She never once asked how I was doing. It was odd, but I blamed myself for not talking about my feelings either. A couple of weeks later, I came home early with some pink roses to talk things over with Ashley. I walked in, and there was Rob. I was confused and thought he might be there for work stuff. Then Ashley appeared with 2 suitcases. Rob had 2 as well. She casually told me she was planning to leave me, that she was moving in with Rob, and that our vacation in Italy had secured her enough funds from my parents to afford it. She even had the nerve to take the flowers I brought. And just like that, they were out the door before I could even process what was happening. You know that feeling when everything just crumbles around you? Well, that's what happened to me when I heard the car engine rev, and then silence. Just like that, my wife of several years was gone. For 2 days, it felt like I was living in a nightmare. I didn't leave the house or even open the blinds. I lived off whatever leftovers were in the fridge, and eventually, cup noodles. The TV was my only companion because the silence? Yeah, it scared me. I was so out of it, I couldn't even think about hitting the shower. On day 3, the doorbell started ringing. I hoped whoever it was would just give up and leave. But nope. They got more persistent, ringing it harder and longer each time. After 10 minutes or so, it turned into banging. Then this woman's voice shouted, "I know you're in there. Open up right now. I'm not leaving until we talk." For a moment, I thought it was Ashley. but then remembered she was off gallivanting in Italy with Rob. That reality check hit me hard, but the knocking wouldn't stop. I dragged myself up and opened the door to see this fierce red-haired woman in a sharp two-piece suit standing there, looking like she was ready to bite my head off. She was like, "Your wife ran off with my husband. Sitting here and moping won't fix anything. Get up, take a shower, and meet me in the living room in 15 minutes. We've got a lot to chat about." When I didn't budge, she barged in, took one look at me, and said, "Wow, you stink." "Splendid," I said. "Okay, Mom." And she shot back, "I heard that." I couldn't help but laugh, and for a moment, I felt just a tad more human. After a shower, I walked into a spotless living room and kitchen. Sandra, Rob's wife, introduced herself. She had been trying to reach me at work, but couldn't, so she decided to pop by. She meant serious business. I was floored by what she told me. Like me, she was blindsided by Rob's affair, finding out only when he left 2 days ago with the promise to send his assistant for his stuff. But Sandra didn't sit around weeping. She got busy digging up dirt. First thing she did was check Rob's laptop. Turned out, his Facebook was logged in, and she found all sorts of incriminating chats. Once she pieced everything together, she dove deep into my trust fund documents. Apparently, Rob had been sneaking out money with Ashley's help. I wanted her to be wrong so badly. But nope, Sandra had all the receipts and was ready to take them down. I was hesitant, but Sandra, with fire in her eyes, said, "I've got a daughter to think about. I'm going to drain Rob dry and wreck Ashley. I really don't care what you think. I just needed to let you know. You don't have to be involved if you don't want to." Seeing her determined vibe, I couldn't not trust her. So, I agreed to join forces. While Ashley was sipping wine in Italy, we were cooking up a counter-strike. Fast forward 10 days, Ashley and Rob returned from Italy, unaware of the storm brewing. I got a call from Ashley, and wow, she was fuming. "What's going on? Rob says we're in trouble. Where's my money?" I calmly replied, "You mean my parents' money that Rob used to shower you with gifts? I hope my lawyer's been in touch. Oh, by the way, Sandra works at the firm too." I hung up on her, mid-rant. Later, she confronted me outside work, looking more frazzled than I'd ever seen her. She begged me to explain everything, because Rob's frantic version wasn't cutting it. I let her know the deal. Her lawyer would fill her in on the divorce, with the big kicker being she wouldn't get a cent. The shock on her face was almost satisfying, but then guilt hit me, because, despite all, I still had feelings for her. I quickly bailed out of there before she could sway me. As I drove off, I saw her in the rearview mirror, helplessly standing there. Meanwhile, Rob got smacked with a termination notice at work. The firm had to cut losses, and he was damaging their reputation big time. Sandra had a killer legal team ready and was confident she'd win custody. Hearing all this from Sandra kept lifting a weight off my shoulders. Finally back home, I sat down and wrote it all out. I gotta tell you about this whirlwind with Ashley. I was feeling all sorts of way after our run-in, really restless, and just needed to let it out. Do you guys think I'm being too harsh on her? Anyway, here's a little update. Hey folks, I'm back after a roller coaster week. Really appreciate all the support and for helping clear my head when I was super confused. I had my first therapy session and shared this Reddit post with my therapist. He said it's a healthy way to cope and that it makes sense to grieve losing someone like Ashley, hence the overwhelming emotions after dropping the bombshell. So, what's been happening? Let me catch you all up. Ashley called me again, but this time she sounded different, softer, like she'd been crying. She asked if I'd had dinner and offered to come over and cook. I was totally caught off guard. I didn't even know how to respond at first. It seemed like she took my silence as a yes, because she said she'd be at my place in half an hour. I finally got my words back and said, "No way! After everything you've done, you think you can just waltz in, make dinner, and play house?" She tried to backtrack, saying things were rough, but we could talk it out. I kinda lost it and yelled, "Rough? What you did was just straight up evil and selfish. I never want to see you again. What's wrong with you?" And then she had the nerve to tell me I was overreacting. That was it for me. Any guilt I might have felt was gone. I saw her for who she really was, someone who didn't regret a thing. The conversation turned out to be a way for her to try and manipulate me. She rambled about how I was making her look like a gold digger in the lawsuit, but claimed it wasn't true since she was working and making her own money. I wanted to remind her how I'd cleared her student debts, and if she's comfortable now, it's because of me and my family. She said the only reason she wanted to come over was to talk things out and get back together, and that I should drop the lawsuit because it was pointless. I couldn't help but ask, "What about Rob?" She said Rob was just someone different, and she was having an affair with him because he spiced up her monotonous life. Then she tried to blame me for being away for work, saying I didn't have enough passion, and instead of apologizing, I was suing her. It felt like she was trying to bore me to death with her excuses. I told her she should have talked to me about any issues or suggested marriage counseling. Cheating was never the answer. She brushed it off and just kept insisting on coming over. I ended the call and rang up Sandra, told her everything. Sandra suggested I call Ashley back, pretend to agree, and let her come over to see what she was really up to. I wasn't sure what Sandra's plan was, but I went along with it. When I called Ashley, she sounded all smug, convinced she'd won me over, and said she'd be there soon. Before Ashley arrived, Sandra showed up. She asked me to keep Ashley in the dining room for a surprise entrance. Ashley did turn up, all dressed to impress, and after a quick kiss, she was making a beeline for the bedroom where Sandra was waiting. I stopped her and asked her to sit in the dining room instead. She pouted and tried to guilt-trip me about losing her rights so easily. That's when Sandra walked in, cool as a cucumber. Ashley was stunned, blurting out, "What the hell?" Sandra just smiled and said, "Finally, I get to meet Rob's other woman. And by the way, yes, you did lose your right to the bedroom." Ashley freaked out, accusing me of replacing her with Rob's wife and blaming me for her problems. Sandra chimed in, asking if Ashley and Rob had some joint loan thing going on, or if she was helping him with some shady stuff. Ashley admitted that she was indeed helping Rob, claiming I was condescending to him, and that's why Rob chose her. She then demanded Sandra help Rob find a job by giving a statement in his favor. Sandra just smiled and told me it was time to send Ashley packing. I got the hint, opened the door, and Ashley stormed out, cursing us both. Once she was gone, I turned to Sandra, totally confused, and asked what just happened. Sandra hit stop on a tape recorder she'd brought and grinned triumphantly. "We got a confession, Aaron. These two are going down." Turns out, Sandra's a force to be reckoned with. If I were Ashley and Rob, I'd be shaking in my boots. Before leaving, Sandra casually mentioned that it was her who leaked the news about Rob. I told her she was rubbing off on me because I'd already guessed as much. "Hey guys, I've got some juicy updates for you." So, the drama has really kicked off. I couldn't wait to spill the tea. Sandra, our all-star, sent a tape with all the deets about what was going on to Ashley's company. She made it clear in her note that someone who could trick the people who care about her like that shouldn't be trusted at work. Sandra even knew a business partner at Ashley's firm, an old friend of hers, who then bailed on a deal because she didn't trust some team members. Ashley's boss freaked out when he found out and decided to fire the person responsible. Yep, that's my ex-wife. Now, she and Rob are jobless and drowning in debt. Sandra mentioned that Rob has been blowing up her phone, and when she didn't answer, he started texting. She had enough and blocked his number. I can't lie, I'm enjoying this a little too much. My therapist said Ashley should be a case study in narcissism, and honestly, that gave me the first real laugh I've had in ages. Oh, and get this. Rob got arrested, and Ashley had to dip into her savings to bail him out. Karma's a thing. Anyway, that's it for now. Update. This morning, things got wild. Sandra called me, furious, because Rob, drunk and belligerent, was banging on her door. Her security cam caught everything. He even tried to break in when she told him to scram. Emily, their daughter, saw the whole thing and was shaken up. Divorce is tough on kids, but this is a whole new level of traumatic. Emily hasn't left her room since. Sandra had to hit up the police for a restraining order and couldn't find a babysitter, so I offered to help out. When I got there, Sandra rushed out, leaving me in charge. Emily wouldn't answer when I knocked, so I unlocked her door to check if she was okay. There she was, hiding under her bed, terrified. She asked if I was sent by her dad, and I reassured her that I was her mom's friend. I managed to coax her out, and we watched a Disney movie together. Sandra found us asleep when she came back. Emily wouldn't let go of me when I was leaving, so I stayed the night to make her feel safe. Sandra made pancakes in the morning, and I went straight to work. Emily even made me promise to come back again. So yeah, looks like I'm spending most nights at Sandra's now. She's trying to find a good child psychologist for Emily, but hasn't had any luck yet. I'll keep you guys posted after the first hearing. Update 4. Hey, it's been a while. We just had our first hearing, and let me tell you, Ashley and Rob are done for. We've got so much evidence against them, it's practically an open and shut case, though these things do take time. Sandra's pretty confident it'll all be over within 6 months, and she thinks they're both headed for jail. As for their divorce, they won't get a dime. Rob's got to cough up for child support, too. I heard Rob's working as a janitor at a club now. Things really aren't looking good for him. Outside the courthouse, we saw Rob getting roughed up by some loan sharks. He's at rock bottom, and when he saw Sandra, he begged her to take him back. But we know better now. Sandra's lawyer says the case is so solid that Rob won't even get visitation rights. I'll let you know how it all goes down.